One of the most elusive elements of the universe is time. It waits for no one. As time passes, we have choice moments where we can reflect on our decisions, gain a deeper sense of self, and consciously decide on the impact we choose to make on the world. Since the beginning of time, man has been fascinated by his image, but we know that while our images do communicate what we are, which is human, there is a deeper calling of the heart to know who we are as people. The first known mirrors were traced back to 6200 BC, and these early pieces were made of polished obsidian. A desire to look good is not an instant leap to narcissism, but is instead a sign of positive self-esteem and good mental health. Skin regimens are not new. Cleopatra, the Queen of Egypt, historically noted for her beauty, required a bath of milk, fresh honey, and almond oil to maintain her flawless skin. The focus on vibrant and healthy skin continues today as more and more people focus on their skin, which is the largest organ on the body. With the advent of selfies and the need to get that perfect pose, many are seeking professional services to improve their skin. Today, we will discuss the many advances in dermatology, not as a way to turn back the clock, but to offer insights on how to be our very best selves as a means of self-expression and personal power. Hi, this is Dr. Michelle Pierce Mobley, lovingly known as Dr. Michelle, and I want to welcome you to another segment of Tabernacle Talks. And tonight we're going to be talking about Your Skin is In. We all know that we are in an age now where being photographed more than ever before. And for some of us that have had to spend the last year on Zoom calls, trust me, that has not been fun for some of us when you've got these close-ups of your face being zoomed across the nation. Trust me, it is not fun. And there's probably a lot more emphasis now on looking at our faces more than we ever have. I mean, we're in the age of selfies. We are in the age of Zoom calls. And so there's probably never been more attention to looking at our faces in all kinds of contexts. So today, I thought it would be great to have Dr. Shari Hicks Graham, a licensed board certified cosmetologist, to come on the show and talk to us about some of the great advances to kind of perk our faces up a little bit. Welcome to the show, Dr. Graham.
Thank you so much for having me today, Dr. Pierce Mobley. My name is Shari Hicks Graham. I'm a physician dermatologist, and I practice at Downtown Dermatology in Columbus, Ohio. I'm also the owner and creator of LiveSo, which is a shampoo treatment system for scalp health geared toward textured hair and moisture retention.
But could you first tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
So during medical school, I had, a great interest in a lot of different fields, but it became clear almost immediately when I rotated through dermatology as a fourth-year medical student that I had found my place. I had found home, and that was really because I was drawn to the types of patients who we were able to see, and who was it? It was everyone. We saw women, men, children. I mean, all sorts of backgrounds, all different types of problems, whether it be internal medicine related conditions or things that are just moles and just related to the skin itself. It was just quite diverse in terms of the patient population and the types of issues. And so I was just drawn to that. I also thought it was really powerful that you could look at a rash and have an idea as to what was going on with the patient just by looking, and really our number one tool in dermatology is really our eye, and just being able to kind of categorize the look of a rash or a mole or a pattern of hair loss and be able to figure it out just by the clinical exam. So I thought that was really powerful when paired with kind of the story of the patient.
Okay, now we want to talk about why you actually chose to go into the field of dermatology. I think that it's an interesting career path. And if you could just kind of describe for the audience the profession of dermatology, the education necessary, and just what a typical day looks like in the life of a dermatologist.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So after high school, you do a 4-year undergraduate degree. I received a Bachelor of Arts from Spelman College and then went right on to the University of Pittsburgh for a 4-year medical degree. So that's where I attained my MD. And then I proceeded to a little bit more training in dermatology. So I did a research fellowship because I had missed the application deadline. You know, that little key point where I said I had
Yes.
my 4th year rotation. Well, a lot of people figure out what they want to do like before 4th year. So for that reason, I kind of had to pause and reset. And I think that's kind of a cool part of the story is that, you know, when you find something that you really feel passionate about, for me, it was important not to proceed with my original plan, which was to do internal medicine and pediatrics. So I actually pulled out of my residency application process and pressed pause and did a research fellowship first. Then I was able to apply for my dermatology internship and residency after that. So I did a research year while I kind of got my application together, got some great experience in dermatology, then did 1 year of internal medicine at Mass General Hospital in Boston. And then, and that was in internal medicine, then went on to Los Angeles to LA County Medical Centers where I did dermatology for 3 more years. So all in all, it was 13 years of education for me after high school.
Okay, what positive changes have occurred in the field? I know that every profession develops and kind of addresses the issues of our time. And so as a dermatologist, what are you seeing as the development in the field? And if you could kind of give us some historical context.
Well, it's interesting because originally dermatology, you know, back say 50 to 80 years ago was really focused on venereal diseases of all things. You may not know that. It's kind of an interesting piece, but it's true. And so a lot of the rashes, whether it was syphilis or other warts and things like that, they often were found to be related to the skin. And so in many cases, dermatology was looked upon as kind of being kind of a taboo field, believe it or not. And then over the years, particularly in the last 10 to 20 years, with the advent of more cosmetic work, dermatology has become more favorable. And I'd say probably in the last 50 years, a greater understanding about many of the inflammatory conditions like eczema and psoriasis, different types of hair loss. Those things have become more well understood. Also, we've learned more about skin cancer awareness and prevention. And so that's been a real advantage and kind of feather in the cap of the field. So, and certainly in the digital age with social media, the selfie, people are very much interested in maintaining their skin health and in proper form. So dermatology right now is a really bright and exciting field.
Thank you for sharing that with us. You own a practice in Columbus, Ohio. What are the most frequently requested procedures in your practice?
Okay, so the most frequently requested procedure probably relates to just a good fundamental skin examination, whether that be focused on just the skin of the face, particularly in the case of, say, an acne visit, or a full body skin examination that one might like if they were concerned about moles that could be widespread all over the body.
You are a big proponent of skincare. What type of skincare treatments do you offer clients when they come to your office?
Yes, we definitely recommend doing skin self-examinations regularly. Certainly, if you want to do it on a monthly basis, particularly if you have a lot of moles, I think that would make a lot of sense. If you have very few, then it's just important to really understand what your skin looks like at baseline and then pay attention to your body so that if you notice any changes, you can bring that to the attention of your provider.
Let's talk about moles. Are all moles the same? We know that was a time in probably the early 60s and 70s where all moles were determined to be beauty marks. Is that still something that we should say it's a beauty mark, or should we be concerned when those moles change in terms of their size? And just kind of talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. So it's important to know that not all moles are bad, but I think it's also important, like you say, to recognize that, you know, if you have a mole, it's good to understand whether it's a normal benign mole or if it's something that could be cancerous. The little tiny moles on our face that are generally around here are typically safe. But if there's a mole, no matter where it is or what you've always called it or how long you've had it, if it begins to change or become, you know, different in any way, it's really important to get it evaluated by a board certified dermatologist. So the reason is that no matter skin tone, we all are possibly at risk for developing melanoma if you have a new or changing mole. And melanoma is skin cancer. And it's skin cancer that is developed from the melanin containing cells called melanocytes. And when these cells become abnormally cancerous, they can turn into melanoma, skin cancer, and then that can be very dangerous because it can aggressively spread or metastasize to other body sites, just like any other cancer. And it is less common in communities of color, but when we do get this disease, it tends to be much more deadly. So we have much, you know, our 5-year survival rates are much lower in people of color, and particularly Blacks and Hispanics, than it is in our Caucasian counterparts. And so it's really important that if you notice a mole, no matter your skin type and no matter if it's in a sunshine area or not, and that's because many cases our melanomas are found on our palms or under nails or on the soles of our feet. Who would know that, right? Isn't that odd? You would think like, why? It's not in the sun. But it just happens that, you know, melanoma can develop anywhere, absolutely anywhere. We really base everything on a diagnosis. So that's, you know, it may not seem super fun, but we really have to be almost dogmatic to a fault. And that's what you'll get when you see a dermatologist. When you see a medical professional who's a board certified dermatologist, he or she will examine your skin. And that's really where I begin. So I talk to you first. We figure out kind of where these rough places kind of originate, how they've been treated, perhaps yourself at home, and then we figure out like what they are. So I examine your skin. I use a light called a dermatoscope, and I look at the features, and then we plot a real plan together that will meet both your needs and my needs to be able to best care for your skin. I think that it's important to make sure that we have equal expectations from the beginning, because sometimes I think people just say, you know, like you say, just remake me. I want to look great. And it's like, okay, well, we have to kind of focus and figure out like what you're doing at home, how, you know, but to get back to the essence of your question, now that we've gotten that business out of the way, we have all sorts of things at the practice, whether it be something, you know, on the level of just doing mole removal. If you have like rough little tiny moles that we call DPNs, or we call them dermatosis papulosa nigra, they're like the little tiny moles that a lot of us have. They may look like freckles at first, but then they can kind of take on a life of their own. Itch, and they can get kind of warm and they can sting sometimes. It's bothersome to people. So we will remove those. We can remove those safely. And then, you know, if people do have discoloration, perhaps I'd say hyperpigmentation is a huge issue, particularly with women of color, and become these little, almost like just little dots on the skin over time, and just be annoying. Who may suffer with acne. And so if you get a blemish, perhaps even once a month, it's frustrating because you may only get like one pimple a month, but it seems like the marks just kind of stack up, and before you know it, you may have a lot of hyperpigmented marks on the skin, and that's more bothersome to you than the original pimple. And so there are lots of things we can do for that. There are chemical peels, for example. We have some laser treatments, and then all of those important things that we do in the office really work well with a good home care routine. So we do offer medical grade skincare products that we retail in the office. And that's really nice, because I tell you, it's really like putting money down the drain. If you come to us and we remove moles and we give you a great chemical peel and you're feeling great, and then you go home and you don't take care of it, or say you don't wear sunscreen, or say you get aggravated and you squeeze a pimple, and then you're back to where you started, because sometimes we know that if you squeeze pimples, they leave a mark even longer than if you would have left it alone in the first place.
Are all lasers the same? I know we talk about lasers, but are they all the same?
So there are lots of things, but I love lasers. And I think that we do at the office is laser hair removal. And that is something that can be done safely on all skin types. And it's really common for women to have unwanted facial hair. Nobody likes to talk about it, but I like to kind of take the taboo away. And the fact is, it's a very natural thing for many women, especially 40 and over, to start getting a little bit more facial hair. Unfortunately, that facial hair can ingrow with normal methods of hair removal, and that can cause hyperpigmentation again. And that is difficult to manage if you don't get rid of the original issue, which is the unwanted hair. And by plucking or waxing, we notice that ingrown hairs tend to become more of a problem than if you use laser hair removal. Laser hair removal can actually be a treatment for that hyperpigmentation, and you'll get results much, much faster that way. It can be used on any hair bearing surface, but I will say it's important to be sure to always wear proper eye protection. The laser beam is not really designed to sculpt eyebrows in cosmetically, beautiful ways. It's designed to just get hair to go away. And, the sculpting really is left best to waxing, and the eyebrow or threading, or whatever your preferred method is. The hair of the eyebrow tends to be shorter and a lot more straight. And so you don't have the issues with the curling in that you might for facial hair on the lower portion of the face. So waxing or other plucking methods are a lot less damaging to the skin around the brows. So it's okay to use those methods there, but it's mostly for like the jawline, the neck, the upper lip, the cheeks, and of course, body sites. So, and it is important to know that choosing the laser and the practitioner is really important. You want to make sure that your dermatologist has familiarity with the proper lasers to use for hair removal on skin of color, because not all lasers are created equally. You need to know that there are some lasers that are really designed to treat skin of color safely and effectively, and then there are some that can do it safely, but it's going to take you a lot more treatments because they have to turn it down so low for it to be safe on skin of color. So you might end up thinking that you're getting this great deal because it might be perhaps less expensive and they say it's going to be fine, but then you end up having like double or triple the treatments because it's only designed to be used safely if they turn it way down. So you don't necessarily get the efficacy that you're looking for with as much efficiency.
So how often does a woman have to come to your office to receive those treatments?
We recommend monthly treatments, and our most common package is 6 treatments that we do once a month or every other month once we establish a significant amount of hair is removed.
Okay, I've got another question to ask you. I understand that you do procedures in your office to actually repair ripped earlobes when a person has worn earrings for a period of time that are too heavy. Can you talk to us about that procedure?
Absolutely. So Split earlobe repair is something that I really enjoy doing. And I think because it's something that I learned to do well in residency out in Los Angeles. So my program director was a keloid researcher. So we would do a lot of work with people who develop those scar keloid bumps on the ears in many cases, because that's like the most common area to develop a keloid is after ear piercing. And so we just got really familiar with helping people get rid of these keloids. And that was a great place to learn how to do dermatologic surgery. So we would really get pretty good at helping people get rid of these and reform their ear into a state where it would look cosmetically normal. So as part of that, you know, like you say, wearing heavy earrings, having a baby pull on it, or playing sports or sleeping in earrings can often cause the earlobes to become susceptible to tearing. And over time, literally, it just rips right through. And it doesn't necessarily always happen right, like immediately. It can happen slowly over years. And before you know it, you're not able to wear the earrings that you want because the hole is just too large to support the cosmetic earring. So so yeah, we love to just freshen the edges of the skin and sew it back together. And typically, you know, it's something that we do right in the office and people are very comfortable. We numb the skin, we repair the earlobe, and then you typically come back in 2 weeks to have stitches removed, and then you can re-pierce it, but you have to wait a few months to do that, about 2 months, and we can do the piercing for you in the office.
Are there any supplements or medications that can have an adverse effect on our skin?
Now, I just say, you know, it's just important to eat a well-balanced diet. Making sure that you eat whole foods like and whole vegetables, really vegetables, fruits, bright leafy greens, things that are high in A, D, E, K. Those are so important, and to make sure that you know, you're not forgetting to drink water. I think in many cases, that's something that a lot of people have a hard time with, so that when you're dehydrated, your skin just can't, you know, you won't be able to get that glow. You may feel more sullen. Your skin may be drier and not as plump. And so it's really important to stay hydrated with things that are not always caffeinated or with added sugar. And so I'd say just keeping it really plain, just make sure you try to drink at least 8 glasses of water per day. And then of course, I was thinking ahead with the hours, 8 hours, 7 to 8 hours of sleep are also really good for the skin, just to help all those vitamins and nutrients really process through. I think in these times of stress, you know, when we're living pandemic life and we're, you know, doing our best being socially distant, we almost have to go back to basics because that's all we've got, you know, at a point are just, you know, the ways to keep ourselves healthy with nutrition, like your question alluded to.
What are some of the latest technological advances in skincare? And I want to talk about a few of them. Let's start with the great B, Botox.
No, but Botox is amazing. You know, there's a reason why it's the #1 cosmetic procedure in the world, and that's because it works. It works. So Botox has been around for commercially for over 20 years, and it's very, very safe. And it works, and it is for everyone who feels like they have too much movement or lining of the face from expression. So it's not designed for lines here. It's designed for lines here. Okay, so when you raise your eyebrows, if you notice that you're very expressive and you smile a lot, perhaps, and you get little lines here, and you recognize that suddenly when you're not making those expressions anymore, the lines are still there and they're becoming etched in. Or a lot of people notice that when they apply makeup, the makeup kind of settles in the lines and the makeup doesn't look as nice as it used to anymore because the makeup is setting in lines. then if it's in a line that comes deeper when you express, then that is a line that may be treated with Botox. So Botox is wonderful. I think it really works well for women of color, even men of color, and it just helps to give the face a more natural, relaxed look. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's not taboo. It's totally fine. It's fine to do. So I love to just give that message that it's almost like just an invitation that, it's okay. And it's not, you don't have to feel bad about it or ashamed or not feel like it's for you or feel like you're selling out your natural self. No, it just means that, you don't like a little line and you'd like it to relax. That's all there is to it. And I do find, and I've been doing Botox myself for about 6 years, and I find that after, like, once I get my touch up, I find that I do feel better. I do. It improves my mood. And I think and it does help to just relax the muscles. And so when when we are really tight and we're expressing a lot, and you can feel that tension in the face. And so when you get Botox, it relaxes it. And I can feel that draw just kind of becomes softer, and it makes me feel better. So a lot of people also support that, and there have been studies.
Thank you for that excellent explanation about Botox. Now let's talk about facial fillers.
So fillers are different, and they're equally as wonderful in my book, but they are generally, the most common ones are created with this ingredient called hyaluronic acid. And hyaluronic acid is a naturally derived water-loving property that helps to keep the skin lifted and more full than perhaps what it was looking before. So the idea with it is that it will help to soften lines. It helps to restore volume, perhaps where we lose it over time. So, as we become older, we lose that baby fat look that we had. So if you go back and look at your pictures when you're, say, 20, you may notice that you have this little round face and you've got this everything is just full, right? You don't have the deep lines. Even when you're smiling, they're not so deep. And when you stop smiling, you don't have these lines, and you have these high cheekbones, and there's no sagging hollow here. And it's just this whole, this look, and you wonder why, wow, I look so peaceful. And that's because you've got this extra fat that's still in your face. Over time, the fat, just that fat in our face, and we gain it in other places, but we lose it in our face, and results in deeper lines here. And we call those the static lines. So we don't, when we're not expressing, that's when we see these lines more deeply. And so filler can be used to help kind of lift those deeper furrows, like here. And then also we get the marionette lines where you get kind of, I know some of my areas here, it's good for that area. And so yeah, filler is amazing. I love it in the cheeks because it lifts from within and it does not look overdone. You can do a little bit of filler and get a lot of benefit. In many cases, these fillers can last up to 2 years.
Okay, I understand in my research, I found out there was an IPL, or intense pulse light therapy. What is that?
So IPL is interesting. I will say that this one is not as friendly toward people of diverse skin tones. It tends to be a little bit more easy to apply on lighter skin types, just because it is a more broadband light source that tends to be a bit more easy to treat people with lighter skin. So it's not one that I have in the practice, but a lot of people do like IPL. But I like to, lasers are expensive. And so I invest in devices that I can use kind of on many different patient types. And so IPL felt a little bit limited for me. So I don't carry that one, but IPL it's a nice resource depending on the skin type.
You talked earlier that all lasers are not the same. Can we talk about the lasers some more?
there are some lasers that do really well for skin of color. Like there's a facial laser called the Genesis, and that's that uses a 1064 nanometer wavelength laser, and it just means that it's a laser that's colorblind in a sense. And so what it does is it safely and without pain helps to tighten the skin from within, and it just uses heat to do so. And so it helps to make it helps to make acne scars disappear, and it also helps to reduce the appearance of pore size, and it also helps to tighten and tone the skin. So we call it a toning laser, and that is very safe, and we offer that in the practice, and it's typically something you do once a month for 4 treatments. And so if you're dealing with unwanted acne scarring or hyperpigmentation or just sagging, or you have some rough texture, that's something that we often go to. That's a nice go-to. And then there's another treatment called the Secret RF. And that's one of my current favorites. And what that is it uses a technique called microneedling, which you may have read about. That's really popular right now. So microneedling is paired in this awesome handpiece with radio frequency heat energy. And so we also like that energy because it also helps to tighten and tone. And then when you combine it with microneedling at the same time, the results can be dramatic. So if a person wanted to like lift and tighten, if they had some saggy skin, say here at the neck, or if they had jowls and they were say they didn't really want to have injectable fillers, this could be something that they do to just enhance their skin kind of natively without having to have injections. And so in some cases, even if we do think that eventually they might need a little Botox or filler, if the skin, say, is just not very firm, if the elasticity isn't good, or if there's prior acne scarring or hyperpigmentation, sometimes we'll want to treat with Secret first and just make sure that the skin is in its best condition before we do filler or Botox or any other cosmetic service, just because we want to optimize the quality of the skin first.
Okay, now I had a friend of mine, I have to ask this. There is a common belief, and I believe that this saying has actually been trademarked, that Black don't crack. But we do know that we get bags and sagging skin, and we have demarcations in our skin as we age. So can we speak a little bit about, does Black crack?
Melanin is very powerful. It helps to protect us against UV damage, but it's not 100% foolproof. And so it is important to give it a little extra help. I do want to put a plug in for sunscreen use in people of color. That's a big topic right now. We are trying to spread the word that people of color need to wear sunscreen. And so it's recommended for everyone day to day. And so I suggest that if you're not using sunscreen in your moisturizer, that you find one that you do like. I recommend at least an SPF 30 every day. And there are some challenges to that because you don't want one that leaves a whitish cast on brown skin. So it is important to find one that you feel you can add to the skin without it looking unnatural. And there are some now on the market. There's a new Black-owned product called Black Girl Sunscreen, cute name, but it works nicely. And then there are a couple others. There's one called Unsun. That's a physical SPF. I even heard that Serena Williams just dropped a sunscreen brand. Yeah, she has a skincare line now, and I hear it's great. So, and hers is apparently a physical SPF, meaning that it's just like composed of zinc oxide or titanium dioxide or zinc oxide, and that just means that the particles reflect the sunlight instead of absorbing and scattering within our skin. And so for people who are more sensitive, a mineral sunscreen SPF is preferred. But the tricky part about that is that before this current generation of sunscreens, they weren't well designed for skin of color. They looked almost like white and particulate, and when you put it on our skin, it would look gray or ashen, and that was not good. So they're starting to get a little bit better with the formulations for skin of color now.
Can you speak about the procedures that you can offer individuals for excessive sweating?
Absolutely. So we call that issue hyperhidrosis. So it just means excessive sweating, like you said. And it can be really embarrassing. It can be uncomfortable. It can cause you to not feel, like you're at your best at work or in social situations. And so particularly if it's in a focused area, say on the underarm area, you might be interested in having that issue addressed. And so there are ways, even with oral medications, to help stop the excessive sweating. So we kind of evaluate the potential for that. And then based upon insurance and other factors, we can even offer a medication like Botox. So Botox can actually be used to help stop sweating, and it works very well.
Oh,
It can last for 3 to 6 months. And so we'll inject 50 units of Botox under each arm. And that may sound like a lot, but it's just one treatment and it works really well, for a lot of people. And then there is a new treatment that can be used. It's like, it actually uses microwave energy to heat the area underneath the arms to take care of getting rid of those unwanted sweat glands that are overproducing perspiration. So there are lots of different ways, and depending on your needs, etc., we'll choose one that's best for you.
eye puffiness, bags, lines. Many people think that dark circles are hereditary and that there's nothing they can do about them. Can you talk to some of our women about, and our men, about eye puffiness and dark circles under the eyes and what they can do to combat some of those common things that happen?
It's a tricky situation. I definitely recommend that you get it evaluated. It often is hereditary. It may be associated with something internal like allergies. It could be due to undiagnosed or untreated, poorly treated eczema. And so it's really important to really see someone and get a diagnosis, because really the under eye circles or the discoloration is just a sign, but it's not a diagnosis. And that's what's important. So it's important to just figure out like, well, why? And so you have to go to someone who specializes in this area, whether it be a dermatologist or an oculoplastic surgeon, or someone who really specializes in this area of the face. And I'll be honest with you, if it's a complicated issue and I feel like we've solved for all of the other issues, not everyone is suitable for just a cream. It's not always just about a cream. So we have to get to the underlying issue, and some areas can be rejuvenated with a little filler. And so we can help them that way. But if it's not that, or if it's not something we can just tighten with some other modality, if it does need surgery, if it needs perhaps a little fat removal or just a lid tightening that's better done with a surgical process, then we will send to our surgical colleagues in plastic surgery or ophthalmologic surgery. I'll take a little point of personal privilege and just make 2 points. So the first is just on the topic of hair. So with hair loss, I just encourage women to know that you shouldn't be ashamed. And, it may be something that you are focused on privately, but you haven't shared with anyone. Perhaps your hairdresser knows, or perhaps she doesn't, because perhaps you've stopped going because you're ashamed. And the point is that no matter what it is, if you just notice the hair loss or if you've had it for years, I would just say find a board certified dermatologist who specializes in hair disorders, who you feel that you could open up to, because the sooner you address it, the sooner we can help save the hair follicles that you still have and help to restore regrowth of the hair. So I would just encourage that. And then secondly, just to know that, it's absolutely worthwhile for you to just take the time to do self-care. There's really nothing that is a substitute for it. No one else can do it for you. You can't delegate it to anyone else. It's something we have to be responsible for. And if we don't do it, generally over time, we'll end up paying the price. And whether that be with regard to our hair, or if it's our skin, or if it's a nail issue, or just our overall well-being, our mental state, our blood pressure, whatever it is, you just have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, because if you can't take care of yourself, you absolutely will not be able to take care of your family and your friends who need you as well.
I just want to thank Dr. Shari Hicks Graham for being on Tabernacle Talks today. And we have heard so many suggestions of things that we can try out. She has certainly removed the shame from the big B, Botox, and some of these other popular treatments. So I want to encourage everyone in the audience, if you have questions, please contact Dr. Graham. We have her information on our slides here. And if you contact Dr. Graham, let her know that Tabernacle Talks sent you.
Love that. Thank you so much. Yeah, people can find me at Downtown Dermatology on Instagram, and please follow at Live So Life, which is the hair care brand. And then my personal page is at Shari Hicks Graham.
Have a great night.